Greetings, salted hashes. Welcome back to Disenthrall. I am Patrick Smith. This is the third password video? I hope so. I'm losing my mind. Today, first of all, let me thank you. The people that watch this channel are generally freedom and liberty-oriented people. And if you are taking this seriously, which I assume you are if you've made it to the third video, your digital security is going to be improved. And improving the digital security of liberty-related people, that's a good goal to have, and I'm happy to have helped that achievement in the world. So thank you guys for taking this seriously. Thank you guys for sticking around this long into the third long-ass video on password security. Let's get into it. This video is the first half of the end goal. We're going to go into KeePass today, which is an alternative to Bitwarden, where you manage your own password file, your password database. You manage that yourself. That is the primary difference between Bitwarden and KeePass. Almost everything else that we described and talked about for Bitwarden, even how it works, is very similar, if not identical. This is really simple stuff. It's a database of passwords, and it watches for websites and stuff that you want, and, you know, enters your username and password and stuff for you, just like Bitwarden. The only difference is it's going to be a program that runs on your computer, and as opposed to merely a browser extension. Bitwarden is just a browser extension, only really needs to exist in your browser, and you log into their servers that have your encrypted password. KeePass is a program that runs on your computer that handles that for you, so that you don't even need to trust, you know, Bitwarden as a company or their servers to never get hacked. It's kind of like a level up. Like this, I think everybody watching this, if they just tried it, even the novices, the amateurs, the non-computer savvy, if you just try this for a little while, you don't even have to like mass convert your entire life. Like, pick your number 1, number 2, number 3 most common websites that you log into, and only use it for those 3 until you understand how it works, and then it'll be trivially easy to just kind of move the rest of your digital life over into what we're going to talk about today. So this is the end goal. This is beyond the participation trophy. This is the good job. You're taking your digital hygiene, your password security seriously. This is the first half of that. KeePass is the solution that we're going to be talking about today. Part 2 of this will be the next and final video, as far as I can see, on this whole thing, and it will cover 2-factor authentication, which KeePass can do for you. There's some alternatives. I'm not going to get into it this time. Anyway, this stuff isn't hard. Let's get into it today. So we're going to kind of pick up where we left off. This is pretty much exactly where we left the computer last time. The only thing I've done is I've removed the Bitwarden browser extension from this browser. We're going to close this GitHub page. This is the, you know, the Google account I was using, googispoop@gmail.com. So we're going to kind of start fresh, and instead of using GitHub as a test website, we're going to save the GitHub website for our Bitwarden stuff. We're going to use a different website called GitLab. Website does the same thing. What it does is not important. All we're doing is using it to just kind of have something to create an account and log in with, have a password. So we're going to be using GitLab today for our KeePassing. So first of all, step 1 is we're going to download KeePass. Now, if you just type in KeePass and search the internet for KeePass, you're going to find like 25 different KeePasses. So don't let this confuse you. I will put links in the description of this video to explicitly where you need to go to download the correct version of KeePass. Why are there 25 versions of KeePass? Because this is an open source project. This is not a monolithic company like LastPass or Bitwarden that offers a single product. This is an open source project where anybody can download the code, change the code, release their own version of KeePass. And a lot of people have done that. And a lot of companies have done that to try and profit off KeePass. Like, they will host the KeePass stuff for you, which totally defeats, in my opinion, the purpose of using it. Just go use Bitwarden. You know, if you're going to trust a third party to manage your password database file for you, probably just stick with Bitwarden. Make your life easier. So for KeePass, there are many versions. The original version, the main, quote-unquote main version that's just called KeePass, has a terrible UI. It's kind of made by nerds. Hasn't really been, you know, updated to look good or to have a lot of different versions to work on all kinds of different computers and phones and like Mac and PC and blah, blah, blah. The best version of KeePass, the one I'm going to recommend to you, is called KeePass. And you can see, look, like we just searched for KeePass and we have like KeePass.info. We've got a KeePassXC. There's many versions of KeePass, and the one that I'm recommending to you is KeePassXC. You can see I've typed it in here. We're just going to do a quick search for it, and there it is right there, KeePassXC.org. This is what the page should look like, and the main thing we're going to do here is we're going to download the program, the software. Remember, this is not simply a browser extension. This is primarily a piece of software that runs on your computer or on your phone. Now, there is a browser extension, and we'll get to that next. But to begin with, we just need to install the program, download and install the program. So we're going to begin. This is a Windows computer. You can download it for whatever system that you need to download it for. But we're going to click Download for Windows. Then it gives us options on which one we want to download. I'm going to recommend that you go with the installer. You like the installer 64-bit. You want to click the MSI installer link right here. MSI installer for 64-bit. We're just going to save that. Downloads is fine. It's 49 meg. It's done. So we're going to open the file that we just downloaded. We're going to click Run to run the installation file. And while we're doing this, I'm going to close the browser down so we can focus. So now we're going to install KeePassXC. Oh, I'm excited about this. Like, all the other videos were just like leading up to teaching you this. So I'm so glad you made it. Thanks for following along. It's not going to be near as hard as you probably think it is. So we're going to click Next. We're going to accept the impossible to comprehend terms of the license agreement. We're going to click Next again. You're going to pick where you install it. As every program you've ever done, you can choose to auto start KeePassXC on login. I would definitely recommend you do that. And next, and then install, and it's going to pop up Windows permission thing. Let's wait for it. Wait for it. So this is going to install, and while it installs, we're going to have some awkward silence. All right, and now we have a launch KeePassXC checkbox that we're going to leave checked, and we're going to click Finish, which will launch KeePassXC. Okay. Welcome to KeePassXC. It pops up and asks you, would you like KeePassXC to check for updates on startup? Yeah, we want it to keep up to date because that's how we protect ourselves from the script kiddie threat that we talked about before, right? So we're gonna say yes, automatically keep it up to date. Okay, here we are. This is KeePassXC. Take a deep breath. You've did it. It was that easy. No, I'm just kidding. It's a little bit harder, but not much. So with Bitwarden, we had to go to their website and we had to sign up for an account. Think of this as that same thing. We're going to create an account, except the account is just a file on our hard drive that we are in total control of, which is kind of awesome. So the first thing I would suggest that you do, though, is pick a place for that file to exist that's special, that's in a special place all by itself. What you might do is you might make a folder on your C drive, for example. Now, if you have a different drive that you prefer, fine, but I'm trying to keep this simple for everybody. Probably don't want to put it on your desktop unless you like having a really cluttered desktop. I would suggest just opening your computer, opening your C drive, and you can even just do this right here. You can create a new folder. So what I did is I right-click, New Folder, and we'll call this KeePass, and I'm going to name it KeePassSync. And I'll explain why later, but you can name it whatever you want. Just as long as you know what it is, know that it's important, and name it something that you'll not delete on accident because this is going to contain some important stuff, right? All right, so that's what I'm naming it. So now we have a folder on our C drive, C/KeePassSync, right there. Easy peasy. Okay, so now we can begin. We're back in KeePassXC, the program. So as a step one, we're going to click the Create New Database button. This creates that file. The database sounds fancy and complicated. It's just a file. Remember thinking back to like the Microsoft Word document with your passwords in it. This is like that, except actually responsible. Okay, so it's just a file that's going to keep passwords in. It asks you to name the database. So we're going to name it primary, because, I mean, you can have multiple if you want, if you have different uses for them or something like that. You could do that if you wanted, but today we're going to pretend, you know, for simplicity's sake, that you're only going to have one database file, KeePass file. So we're just going to name it primary, and we don't have to enter a description. We're going to click continue. Now it asks us for our encryption settings, which probably sounds intimidating. Stop it. It's not bad. Here it says, here you can adjust the database encryption settings. Don't worry, you can change them later in the database settings. It's asking you for your decryption time. Now notice this behind the scenes, this determines a lot of complicated stuff that we don't even need to talk about. All it's doing here is asking us, how inconvenient do you want this to be? The more, as with all security, the more inconvenient that you choose to make it, the better secure your stuff is. So, how inconvenient do you want it to be? It's basically between 100 milliseconds of time. So basically every time you enter, just like, remember in Bitwarden, every time you enter your master password, it unlocks and decrypts the password file. So if you choose 100 milliseconds, every time you enter your master password to unlock the KeePass password database, password file, it'll take about 100 milliseconds to unlock and decrypt that file. So you probably won't even notice it. If you choose 5 seconds decryption time every time you enter your master password, which will probably be like once every time you sit down to use your computer, for example. Every time you sit down to use your computer, you'll enter your master password and it will spend 5 seconds decrypting it. What that means is that it's able to choose more complicated encryption behind the scenes that will be harder and more secure for people to breach. So it improves the security, but it's going to take 5 seconds each time. From my perspective, 5 seconds is fine. I just leave it at 5 seconds, fine. I do it once, you know, each time the first time when I sit down on my computer and I need to log into something, I enter the master password, it unlocks the database. And until I, you know, walk away from my computer and it goes to screensaver and, you know, the monitor turns off, it's going to stay unlocked unless you change the settings that would, you know, cause it to lock sooner. So if I'm only doing it, so 5 seconds, you know, the first time I need to use a computer, the first time I need to use a password, when I sit down, not a big deal to me. Small trade-off, small inconvenience for the advantage of the encryption. If it's a pain in the ass for you, if 5 seconds is too long, you know, set this somewhere in the middle. Go 2.5 seconds. That's fine. For the purposes of this video, let's do that. Let's do 2.5. So I just put it right in the middle. You can ignore literally everything else on this page for now. Okay, so we picked 2.5 seconds. We put the slider in the middle. We're going to click continue. It's a lot of talking for just a couple clicks, so I hope I'm not confusing you or making it seem more complicated than it is. Okay, now it's wanting us to pick our master password, just like we did for Bitwarden. This is surprisingly similar, right? Just because I'm going to be typing this a lot to show you guys, I'm going to do boy howdy. Just boy howdy. That is a terrible master password. Don't do it. Boy howdy. So why is this a terrible password? Because it's really short. Now remember, just like with Bitwarden, you want a long password. You probably want a passphrase. Like on Bitwarden we did, boy howdy, Google is the worst company in the world. You want something like that. You know, a long string of characters that you can remember. This is the only thing you need to remember. That's the advantage of a password manager, just like we talked about again. I won't rehash that anymore, but I'm just using a short password so that for this demo, but in real life, I would never do that. I would use the long passphrase here. The add additional protection button will help us next video when we do two-factor authentication. But for now, we're going to leave it here. We pick our master password, we enter it twice to make sure that it's correct, and we hit done. And now it wants to know where we want it to store our password database. Well, we're going to go find our C drive. So we're going to click on this PC, then we can scroll down, we'll find our C drive, and there's KeePassXC folder, and the file name can be whatever you want. You know, it defaults to passwords, which is fine. We also named it primary, so we can name our file primary as well. We can pick whatever we want, and then click save. And now you'll see here in our KeePassXC folder that we created, we have a primary database file. That's it. Congratulations. You have effectively done the same thing with Bitwarden up to the point where you have a Bitwarden account and you have an empty, remember when we showed the extension where we didn't have any websites in there yet, so it was empty. We're in the same place now. You have a program with an empty database just awaiting, it to be filled with passwords and all sorts of useful information. Let me quickly look through the settings to make sure that there's nothing. Let's see if there's anything important in here. So let's go to the tools menu. We'll go to settings, and we're just gonna do a quick flyover of this before we actually get into how to use it, because setting it up properly beforehand is important. Okay, the first thing that I'm going to suggest that you change is in the general section on the basic settings tab that you can see here. We're going to scroll all the way down under the user interface section. Obviously, the language is the language. The only thing I want you to change here is check the box that says minimize instead of app exit. That way, it stays running on your computer after you've logged in and unlocked. It keeps running down there. And then you want to show a system tray icon, and check the box that says hide window to system tray when minimized. That way, when you close this window or you minimize this window, it doesn't constantly take space up down here in your application bar. It hides itself over here in this little area called the notification or the system tray. This is where it'll hide. There'll be a little icon down there that you can find it. So those three checkboxes. Let's move on. Okay, I want to explain the settings in this location. So we're going to basically click on the security category on the left, and I just want to explain your options here and how it works by default. On Bitwarden, it has the same options. You can tell it to lock the database. Remember we talked about the locking options. It'll lock after a certain amount of time, or after you close the browser, or when you do it manually. Well, you get those same options here on KeePassXC. You can have it, you can check this box right here called lock databases after inactivity of X number of seconds. You can choose to do that if you want. By default, it's not checked, and I prefer to have that disabled for myself, and I'll explain why here shortly. Down here in the convenience section, you have lock databases when session is locked or lid is closed. That means like if you log out of Windows, or if your screensaver comes on that locks your computer, like your Windows computer, it will also lock the database. This is the important one. I suggest you leave that checked. Lock databases after minimizing the window. This would be an extreme, this would be a more secure way of doing it, certainly, because your database stays locked most of the time, but it means you're going to have to be entering your master password each time you want to use a password. That's up to you. Again, it's a trade-off between convenience and security. Okay, and the next setting that we're going to talk about, which is we're going to deal with next, is the browser integration. So if you click here, the browser integration category, you have a checkbox at the top that says enable browser integration. And then down here, it's going to ask you which browser you use. Well, I'm suggesting that you use Brave, but you can pick the browser that you use. If you want to use something different, you're going to check this box, Chrome, Vivaldi, and Brave. Basically all Chromium-based browsers. It's going to, actually, there's a separate one for Chromium here. So if you're using Chromium, check that box. Okay, so that's it for settings. Let's click OK to close out of that. And now we're back to the main window. And so just like when we opened the browser extension for Bitwarden, this is where it lists all of the passwords in the database. It allows us to search all the passwords in our password database if we want to find something. Or remember, you don't have to only store passwords in here. You can create just note entries about whatever subject that you want. And so you can search those note entries here. So let's say you had like a daily use low balance Bitcoin wallet, for example. You could have that in here as a note, and if you wanted to search for it, you would just click on the search box in the top right and type in like Bitcoin, for example. And as long as you named the entry Bitcoin, it would find it, and you could look it up and find your recovery keys or whatever fancy secret stuff you had in the notes for that entry. just like we did on, actually, let's just begin by manually adding a password, just to show you the process, though you don't have to do it this way. It will work the same way Bitwarden did, where it watches what you do in the browser and will prompt you if you want to add a password. But I just want to show you the manual process because there's other things that you can do with this, right? So to add an entry, we're going to click the little plus button here in the top, and then it takes us to the add entry window. Now, there's a lot of boxes that you can choose to fill in here if you want, but it's all optional, depending on what you want to use this entry for. So if this were going to be like a Bitcoin wallet recovery key, we'll give it a title, you know, like my Bitcoin daily wallet. And then we don't need username and password. We don't need a URL. We can add a note. And down here, we could paste the, you know, the recovery key, or whatever. Or if we, oh, I don't know, like if we wanted to keep notes on our kids' social security numbers and insurance plan numbers or something like that. You could have a file on your kids' sort of vital information, and you could have an entry in there for that where it keeps it all encrypted, as opposed to just in probably what it is now, like a Word document on your hard drive or something like that. If you keep it in here, it will be way, way more safe if something ever happens to your computer, or if your computer gets stolen or hacked or whatever. If it's in your database file, the information will be way more protected. So that's one thing you can do. If you're trying to add a password for a website, again, you could do it here. So this could be like your, we're not even going to pretend Facebook. We can just say like, oh, this is going to be my GitLab password. So we're going to enter gitlab.com. We're going to enter gitlab.com in the URL because it's going to watch for you to go to that URL. And then we'll enter our username and our password in those boxes and then click OK, done. And now it's in our database or whatever. Again, I'm going to click cancel here because this is not the way I would suggest adding passwords, but that is there for you. So we're going to hit cancel and we're going to say discard. So now we're back. We still have a blank database. Now, one thing that bugs me on anything I use is the bright theme. Everything's white. A lot of things these days, though, have a different theme. And this is aesthetic, of course. You can choose to do this or not. It's up to you. But I'm going to click the view menu. I'm going to choose theme. And I'm going to click dark. And that's all it does. It just changes the theme to a dark theme that is easier on the eyes. I would recommend. You do you though. That's fine. Okay, so that's it. That's the KeePassXC program sorted. Congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back. You did a good job. You made it. That's one of them. That's like fully half of the complicated stuff out of the way already. So we're gonna minimize this, and now you'll notice that when we minimize that window, it's not in our bar down here. But if we click, oh, let me get out the way here. But if we click here, you can see. Okay, this is interesting, and this might just be a bug because this is you know, a virtual computer. But if we look down here in the bottom right, this little up arrow, and we bring up our tray, we don't see a KeePass icon, but it's actually there. It's just invisible or clear for some reason. I'm not sure why that is, but it's there. It just doesn't have an icon. I bet if I reboot the computer or whatever, this will be fixed. But for you, you'll probably see the little KeePass icon here. We can click this to bring KeePass back up. And again, you know, if we minimize it, it goes away. It's not in our, you know, bottom Windows bar here. It's not in our applications bar. It's over in our system tray. I'm not sure why it doesn't have an icon on this installation, but that's fine. It really doesn't. I think we can proceed with the video. It should be fine for you. Okay, so next step is installing the browser extension. Now, it's a browser extension just like Bitwarden. It needs to be a browser extension because you need something in the browser to watch what web pages you're going to and to insert your usernames and passwords just like Bitwarden did for you. The only difference is that the KeePass browser extension that we're going to install doesn't talk to somebody's servers somewhere in the world that you have to trust. It will literally talk to the software running on your computer, which is much more secure and much more private because nothing is going outside of your own computer to get your password information. So let's get into that. Okay, so to install the browser extension, rather than like search the web store like we did for Bitwarden, we already have a link straight to it. I'll show you right where the link is. if we, you know, open up our system tray down here and we click on, in my case, the invisible KeePass icon to bring KeePass back up, we can click on the settings button at the top, and then we click on browser integration category on the left, and it gives us links to all of the extensions right here at the top that will take us directly to them. So in my case, I want the Google Chrome Chromium Vivaldi Brave link, which is here front and center at the top. We're going to click on that, and it's going to take us straight to the correct extension. Now remember, there's lots of versions of KeePass, so doing it that way is the best way, in my opinion, to not get confused if you search and pick the wrong one or anything like that. So if you use the link from the program, you know you're going to come to the correct one. In this case, it's called KeePassXC-browser. That is the extension we're going to install. So all we have to do is click Add to Brave in the top right, and it's going to ask us, just like it did for Bitwarden, do you want to add the extension? It's going to watch what you do. Yes, we want it to, so that it can, you know, add our passwords for us. So I'm going to click Add Extension. A few moments later, in the top right, we will see the KeePass icon. Now remember, just like Bitwarden, it's going to, by default, be hidden behind this little puzzle piece icon in the top right, but this is an important extension we're going to use all the time. So we're going to click on the puzzle piece icon, and then next to the KeePassXC browser extension, we're going to click the little pin button. And all that does is it just keeps the KeePassXC button visible in our browser at all times. So we can close this tab now. We don't need it anymore. Now we can, let's just click on our KeePassXC extension in the top right. So remember, so when you use the Bitwarden browser extension, it goes out to their servers and it downloads your password file. Well, this one doesn't know, it doesn't have servers like that. You need to tell it and make it talk to the program on your computer instead. So we're going to do just that. We're going to click the connect button here in the bottom. Now it pops up. Now this is actually the software on your computer popping up. This is not the browser extension. Not that that matters. Just follow along. It's basically wanting you to name the connection to the browser that it's using. This is, I wish it would just kind of do it for you or give you a default, because this is really unimportant and you'll never need to remember this. So in this case, we're just going to say browser. We're just going to call it browser, and we're going to click save and allow access. What this does is it adds more security to your software. Okay, so like you have the program running, click save and allow access. You have this program running, and you have the checkbox in settings that says allow browser integration, but you don't just want any browser that comes along to be allowed access to your passwords. That would be a security hole, right? Like what if some malicious asshole installs a browser behind the scenes that you're not aware of, and that browser asks to access your KeePass database? You don't want it just saying yes without asking you. So that's what that step was for. It's a good thing. Okay, so we have allowed access from the browser extension to the database that's running in the software. So now it basically functions much like the Bitwarden extension. So instead of the extension having all the stuff in it, the extension is very simple, and you pretty much only ever use it to just make sure that you're logged in to your to your KeePass software. So we're really done. That's kind of the browser integration complete. Now let's put it into action. So we're going to go to GitLab.com. This is the website, and what it does is totally unimportant. We're just using it as a website that we can sign up to track a password for this demo. So we're gonna register now, right here. Here we go. So we're just creating an account just like we would on any website. We're gonna say Goog poop. Username is gonna be Goog is poop. Oh, and you can see KeePass's little icon right here. It just kind of shows it's watching. And if it knew this website, if it was familiar with this website, it would have already been trying to suggest logins, but it doesn't. Okay. Email is googispoop@gmail.com. Now, for the password, we can use KeePass to generate our password just like we did before. So we can open up our program. Let me get out of settings here. And we can click the little dice icon in the top. This is the password generator. Just like Bitwarden had a password generator, so does this. And I actually like this one a little bit better. So again, it lets us choose what kind of characters we want in the password, and it defaults to, in my opinion, better options than Bitwarden. So capital letters, lowercase letters, numbers, as well as a bunch of special characters. That's good. Just go with the default. The only thing I'll do is just turn up the length of the password. Now I just try and do 100 characters. Why not? We don't have to ever remember it. Not all websites will allow you to have 100 character passwords, so you might have to turn that down from time to time, but hey, so whatever. Okay, so we have this password that it's generated up here. To copy it to the clipboard, to paste it into the website, there's this little button in the top right called Copy Password. We'll just click that and then bounce back over here, and we're going to paste it in. And we're going to check the I'm not a robot button. It wants us to identify a school bus. Okay, it believes that we're not a robot now. We're going to click register. And now you see KeePass has done the same thing Bitwarden did at the top. Username or password change. Save it. Username Guga's Poop. Now it asks you, do you want a new account in your KeePass, a new entry in your KeePass, or you want to try and update an existing one? Well, we don't have an existing one, so I'm going to click new. Boom, done. New credentials with username gugaspoop@gmail.com saved in KeePass. So now if we come back over here and we close our password generator, boom, right there. We have an entry for gitlab.com, gugaspoop@gmail. It's got the URL. It has the password. We can see it all right there. The only thing that I wish it would kind of do better is that sometimes it puts an overly specific URL in the URL box, and so later in the future, if the URL is slightly different, it won't as easily prompt you to enter the password for you. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just copy the title, which is the website in question, and paste it down into the URL. So it just says gitlab.com. That means in any URL under gitlab.com, it will prompt to do the password. So that's the only change I usually make to my entries. Before, what does GitLab want? It wants a confirmation email, which we have here. So we're going to do that real quick. Confirm your account. There we go. Your email's been confirmed. Sign in. Well, we should be able to do that now. So you'll notice that because our database is unlocked, meaning we've already entered our master password and it's unlocked, the extension up here is connected, so we don't even need to click the extension anymore. It just notices that we're on gitlab.com, like we have in our database, and that we're at the login page. So we can just, all I do is click in the login box, and it pops up this green dropdown that lets me pick the KeePass entry that I want to log in with. If you have multiple entries to a website, they will all be listed here. Super convenient, just like Bitwarden. So I'm going to click the gugaspoop@gmail entry. It populates the username, it populates the password, and now I'm going to click sign in. Easy as that. Okay, so let's talk about a little bit about password organization. Just like in Bitwarden, you had the ability to put folders or labels on all of your password entries. If you choose, you do not have to. You can have 1,000 password entries in this database with no organization. And if you ever need them, you can search for them using the search box, or you don't even have to worry about it because when you go to the website itself, it will do the searching for you, just like we just did with the GitLab login. So if you choose, if you're the type of person that likes being more organized, you can create a folder structure here. The root is always the root. Everything goes in root. If you want to create folders to get more organized, you can right click on root and check new group. And it asks you to give it a name of the group. In this case, we'll just say like coder stuff. So we'll just say that all the passwords that have anything to do with writing code can go in this folder. And now all we can do is we can grab the KeePassXC browser passwords. Oh, is that a folder? It made a folder. Oh, I didn't know it made a folder. So the KeePassXC browser passwords is a folder. And inside that folder, it put GitLab. So I guess any passwords created through the browser are automatically go in this folder that it created. That's interesting. You can choose to leave it that way if you want. It doesn't matter. You can, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this GitLab password and I'm going to put it over in my coder stuff folder. And now you can see that there's nothing in root, there's nothing in KeePass browser passwords, but in coder stuff, there's my GitLab password. Again, this totally makes no difference to how the browser integration side with the extension. It's just you can choose to be, you know, nerdy and organize your passwords if you want. So like if I ever want to find any of my passwords, I can click on the root folder and just say GitLab. I just type git, and now it shows me that I've got a GitLab entry in the folder coder stuff here. And you can go from there. What else can I show you here now that we have a password in KeePass? So like if we double click on the title, it'll actually open up the entry, and there's some cool stuff in here that I think Bitwarden doesn't even do. Could be wrong. So title, username, password, URL, we've already covered that. Notes, again, just like with Bitwarden, I use the notes field all the time, especially if I have multiple accounts on a website. I'll add a note under each account saying, oh, this is my personal account, or this is my Disenthrall account, or this is my Anarchast account, things like that, just to keep them separate. You can also add to the title without disrupting anything. So if this were my Disenthrall GitLab account, I might actually type, you know, gitlab.com dash Disenthrall, for example, up in the title. And what that means is that when I'm back in the username box, so we're going to sign out here, I'm going to click apply. And when I click apply, it saves the database. So now we're back here. It's not showing me the name that I gave it. Maybe there's something up here. So I'm going to click in the browser extension in the top right, and we're going to click the settings button to see if there's any settings for the browser extension that we need to tweak. This is an interesting one that I need to actually enable on my own computer. I didn't even see it here. Activate password generator icons. Adds an icon to password fields for generating a new password. Passwords are generated by KeePassXC using your password generation profile. Cool. So instead of us having to open up KeePass on the side like we did, maybe this will work from in the browser. I like that. Let's test that. I'm going to probably do that on my own end. In the savings credentials section, I would check if you choose to use folders in your database to organize your passwords. I would check this always ask where to save new credentials. That way, when you add something from your browser, it won't just throw them in that KeePass folder. It'll actually ask you to pick a folder to put the new password in. And here's that default group for saving new passwords thing. So you can configure that if you want. But again, like for the amateurs or people just starting out that want to reduce their complexity, you can totally ignore this. Oh my God, look at this checkbox. Save domain only. When saving new credentials, save only the domain instead of the full URL. Oh, I'm going to go check that box on my computer. Yes, exactly. That's great. So I would definitely suggest checking that box. I would check automatically reconnect to KeePassXC. It says it's experimental. It should be fine. Save domain only. I like that instead of the full URL. That's checked by default, so good. Okay, so I'm gonna call that good. We got the settings. We got the settings good enough. We can log in. Oh, look, it even updated here. So we can see our new name is right here, gitlab.com/Disenthrall, just like I updated the title over in the database. So if we have multiple logins, the title will show up first right here, which will show us, you know, more easily allow us to pick which account we want to log in with. And there we go. That is, ladies and gentlemen, call that the end of the KeePassXC tutorial. Really, let me think if there's anything else that I want to talk about. Let's say you have older crappy passwords, and then as you import them, you know, by logging into websites or whatnot, you want to improve the password. So one thing we might do is in this website, we'll go to wherever on the website it allows us to change our password. So in this case, let's see, where is it going to be? Password. Here we go. So this is where we would change our password. Now, let's assume that this is like a website that we have a really crappy password that, you know, we've been using elsewhere. Well, we want to change that, right? We want to do better. So first thing we're going to do is enter our current password using KeePass. We're just going to click it and it will enter our current password there. Now for new password, let's click. This is cool. I've never used this before. Let's scroll over. I clicked the little key button right here, and it looks like it gave us a password generator. And it looks like it's using the same settings that we had already set over there last time we generated a password. So, and we can keep clicking generate to make new versions or whatever. That's great. We can click copy to copy it to the clipboard if we want. Or we can just click fill password. Let's try that. And so when we clicked fill password, it automatically filled that new long ass generated password into the boxes for us. Now we can click save password. Awesome. And then up to the top again, you can see username or password changed. Save it, question mark. New or update. Well, this was an update, so we're going to click update. Do you want to update the information in gitlab.com-googaspoop@gmail? Yes. So I'm going to click save. Success. Credentials with blah, blah, blah saved. So now we can go back over here. Let's check and see. No, it says it's been modified. 9:57 a.m. Here's another cool thing. When we open the entry, there's all sorts of stuff with each of your entries. You're not going to probably use most of it ever. So if this is too much for you already, if we're already at your mental limit, you can ignore the next few things that I say. Mostly you can ignore the advanced tab, but I will point out that if you want, you can add file attachments to an item, which is really cool actually. So like if you have a screenshot of an important something, if you have, I don't know, a small Word document that has some really important stuff in it and you don't want to save that Word document on your hard drive, why not put it as an attachment in here? If you have a contract with a website or something, you could store the contract in here. I would suggest not adding large files in here because the files are added as part of your password database file, and you probably don't want that thing growing too large. So, you know, only use this for, you know, small things, small attachments that are kind of important and that need to be really secure. The icon, you can pick an icon for this entry if you care. I never care. Auto type, I'll explain next. That sounds, that might be useful sometimes. Let's see, properties we don't care about. History, this is cool. So in the beginning, we can see the whole history of this. So we began by adding it to the database here under this entry. And if we want to examine this entry, we can double click on it and open up the historical version of this password entry. So if we change a password or forget a password or screw up the database, we can always go back in time to find an old password that we used. So you can see this was the original entry. It has the whole URL before I updated it. It's got the original password that we generated right there manually. Then the next one is when we updated the URL. And then the next one is when we updated the name and hopefully the password. I think and then the current version is the one with the new password. Let's actually test that. So the password was updated, sign in again. Let's see if yeah, there we go. So the password is up to date. Awesome. I love it when stuff works on demos, because sometimes the demos are when it breaks. Okay, let's see. What else? Oh yeah, auto type. So this is interesting. This allows, this is something that Bitwarden's browser extension can't even do. So let's say you have a program, like another program on your computer that wants you to log in, like an actual username and password for a program. And so there is no browser involved. Let's say, for example, I'm just going to open up Notepad and we're going to pretend, okay, we're going to pretend that Notepad is going to be the program with a username and password box in it. And let's say that we want to log into the program. What we can do is we can put our cursor in the username box for the program. Then we can open up the KeePassXC, and then we have the ability to perform an auto type, which means it'll pretend to be a keyboard typing in your password. So we can right click on this entry and we can say perform auto type, or we can just click on the entry and then click the keyboard button at the top, and it will hide its window, tab back over to Notepad, type in your username, press tab, type in the password, and hit enter. So it, without you having to copy paste the clipboard like we had to do with Bitwarden or without any of that, it automatically will type in the whole thing for us, just like you saw it doing there. Pretty cool stuff. Pretty useful for logging into anything. So an advantage of this KeePass method is that now you can use passwords for programs as well, which in my opinion is like a bare minimum thing that you need to do for a password manager. Updating a password is also pretty easy. Let me go through that real quick and then we're basically done here, I think. So we're going to double click on this, the title of this GitLab entry here to open up this entry again. Let's say that we want to, let's say this is a program and not a website where we can't use the website password generator that we did on GitLab. Let's just say that we want to generate a new password for this entry specifically. Well, we can click the little dice icon right here next to the password. which will bring up the generator again, and we can have it generate a new password. We don't even have to see it on screen. We can click apply password. And so what just happened is it generated a new password and put it in the box, and now we can click OK. And now the new password is stored in this entry. And we'll notice that if we go back into history, we can see that it's added another historical item. So because I just updated the password without updating it on the website, the password that's in there now is actually incorrect. So we'll have to remember that next time we logged in. But this is a good explanation of what the history is good for. If we want to restore that password or find that password to log back in, we can double click this history entry, and this is the old password right here. And so I can actually right click and select all on that password, right click again and copy that password. We can close this historical entry, go back up to the main entry, again, select all, and we can even delete it, and then paste in that historical one that we sort of resurrected from history. And now I'm going to click apply to save that change. And we can go back down to history and we can see that, you know, we have a new entry that we've just added so that we haven't lost anything. So that was a kind of a quick walkthrough of how to manually generate a new password directly from KeePass if you wanted, as well as how to go grab something from history if you want to try and resurrect an old lost password. So that you don't lose anything. It's super cool that it doesn't lose anything. Okay, so that is, that's it, guys. So that's, no, it's not it. What am I thinking? We haven't done the phone and we haven't done the syncing. Okay, so let's minimize the browser. Let's remember that on our C drive, we have a KeePass sync folder. And inside here, we have a primary file. All of our passwords are right here. If we delete this file, we lose all of our passwords. This is now an important, very important file that you should back up. Now, backup hygiene is probably going to be the next series of videos, and it's probably just going to be one video because it's simple. But you need to make sure that this file is backed up. Don't let this file only exist in one place on one hard drive. Whatever you do, like. It's super important now, right? Because it's your access to everything. So the advantage of KeePass is that you are the only one with this file. You haven't sent it off to somebody with some other server somewhere in the world to trust to manage this file well for you. The responsibility that comes with that advantage is that you are in charge of this file and getting it between your devices. So if you have another computer that you want to install KeePass on, well, that KeePass, you don't want to just create a new database file over there. It won't have any of your passwords. You're going to need to manage to copy this file to your new computer. Or your phone, for example. There's a KeePass app for your phone that we're going to install here shortly. If you just create a KeePass database on your phone, it won't have any of your passwords. So you need to sync this file between your computers and your phone. You have to do that yourself. Whereas Bitwarden, you trust Bitwarden to do that syncing for you. And I can hear like a sigh, like, oh, you mean now I have to learn how to sync files? Guys, it's not as bad as you think it is. I'm going to show you a quick piece of software you can run on your phone and all your computers that will not only be really useful and simple and easy for syncing this password file, but it's going to open up just a long list of possibilities for you for other things that you might want to sync between your computers. Like I'm thinking of my mother right now. Every time she gets a new computer, it's very, very important and critical to her. She has a folder with like 1,000 fonts in it that she's collected over the years. And a lot of her documents use a lot of these different fonts. And so every time she gets a new computer, it's very critical to her that these fonts sort of come with her, and that these fonts exist on her home computer as well as her work computer. Well, that's a manual process for most people. It's like when you get a new computer or when you go to work, if you add a new font to the folder at home, you have to manually like email the font to yourself or something, or add it to your Google Drive and re-download it manually or whatever. Well, the process that I'm going to show you for syncing this file can also be used for syncing that file and everything else that you want to sync. Think music. Like if you have a folder with a bunch of songs in it, you can use it to sync that. Anyway, maybe that's a separate video for syncing other things in your life, but just know that what I'm about to show you for syncing the password file is not just for passwords. It can be wildly useful in a lot of other things, so you should probably want to use this program anyway, and it's super simple, not a big deal. Let's get into that. So before we go to our phone or anything, we're gonna set up the syncing part on this side. We're gonna open our Brave browser again. Now we're gonna open up a new tab. The name of the program that we're going to install on our devices to handle our syncing is called SyncThing. Again, I'll put a link in the description to this. SyncThing.net is the website. This is an open source program that uses, that does all the transferring and syncing for you, encrypted. So it's safe in transit, which is really, really awesome. So, and it's super simple. Like, this is not hard, guys. You got this. You got this. If you complete this step, then we're basically done with the level 1 trophy for passwords, short of the 2-factor that we get to later. Like, you got this. It's not hard, and this will be really useful for other things. Okay. All right. I'm trusting you to do the hard work to set this up. I'm going to shut up now. Okay, so this is SyncThing. It's awesome. We're going to click Downloads at the top. And then on the Downloads page, at the top, in Integrations, you're going to see this thing right here called SyncTrezor. Weird name. Don't worry about it. Click the button SyncTrezor, which is going to take us over here. We're going to scroll down, and we're going to look for this one right here, SyncTrezor Setup X64. We're going to click that, and it will download to our Downloads folder. Now we're going to click that to install the SyncTrezor. And all this is it uses SyncThing, but makes a little icon down in your system tray to make it easier to use, which will be great for you guys. Install it wherever you want. We're going to click Next. We're going to click Next again. We're going to click Next again. We're going to click Install. Woo! So hard. Next, install. Very, very simple, guys. You got this. You got this. We're going to get through this together. Okay, that actually took a long time for some reason, but it's done now. Moving on. So it's gonna, the checkbox at the end here says launch SyncTrezor. Yes, that's good. Click finish. It will launch the SyncTrezor. You guys are gonna love this. This program is awesome. I'm gonna close this browser tab. We don't need it anymore. I'm gonna minimize that browser entirely. Here we go. So SyncTrezor is starting up SyncThing behind the scenes for us. Down here, we have a Windows prompt saying, hey, security alert, are you sure you want SyncThing to be able to talk to the internet? Yes. We're going to check both of these boxes, private and public, and we're going to click Allow Access, because this thing needs to talk to the internet to do its job. Okay, so back in SyncTrezor, it says Allow Anonymous Usage Reporting. This is totally up to you. I usually say no, none of your business what I do. Okay. Username and password has not been set for the GUI authentication. Please consider setting it up, is the message it says at the top. If you want to prevent other users on this computer from accessing SyncThing and through it your files, consider setting up authentication. This is going to be up to you. If you have other people using this computer, you might want to consider going into settings and setting that up. In my case, I don't need that today, so I'm just going to click the OK button here. Now, SyncThing is set up and installed and ready to go. It has a default folder that it's created somewhere on your computer for syncing things. I don't want or need that, so I'm going to click on default folder. I'm going to click on the edit button, and I'm actually going to remove it right here, the remove button, bottom left. Are you sure you want to remove the folder? Yes. Okay, so now we have sort of like an empty blank SyncThing, which is awesome. You can see the computer information is sandbox, and now we can add a folder for it to sync. That's basically the way it works. SyncThing looks at the folders and watches whatever folders you tell it to watch on your computer. And anytime it sees something change inside that folder, it will see if any other devices anywhere else running SyncThing is sort of subscribed to the updates for that folder. So if you add a file, modify a file, or delete a file, it will notify the other devices that are interested in that folder to see if they want to do a sync, to update. And now remember, this is a create a new file, this is an edit a file, or a delete file. So if you have a synced folder, for example, let's say you have 2 computers that are syncing your fonts folder, for example, and you've got 1,000 fonts in your fonts folder that you have synced, and on your work computer, let's say that you delete one of the fonts. Well, that delete is going to be synced to your home computer as well. So you got to be careful in that regard, that what you do on one side will be mirrored everywhere else that is synced, if it's, you know, set up to do it that way. So that's SyncThing in a nutshell, and we're just going to use it to sync our password database from KeePass to all the other devices that you want to have it on. And we're going to do that by, remember, and this is again why when we created our database file in KeePass, this is why we made our own folder for it and put it in here. This KeePass sync folder. Well, that's the folder that we're going to tell SyncThing to pay attention to. So we're going to click Add Folder, and we're going to give it a label. In this case, we'll say KeePass Sync. And then down here in the folder path, we're going to need to paste this in, right? So we're going to come over here, and in the top of our little window, we're just going to click up there. We're going to select all, and we're going to copy C:\KeePass Sync. That's the path to the folder that we want it to pay attention to. Then we'll come back over here, we'll delete that, and we'll paste in our path with Control V. So now we can click Save, and now it has added KeePass Sync folder to its sort of purview, to the things it's paying attention to. Okay, so now our KeePass Sync folder has been added to SyncThing, and we're done with this program for now. So we can click the X, and you'll notice that when we click the X, we still have an icon down here. Oh, you can't see it. There we go. We have an icon down here in our system tray, a little blue icon. This is the Sync Trezor icon that is managing SyncThing for you. It's all right there, and it's just going to kind of sit there in the background on its own. All right, so that's that. We're going to hit the X up here again, just note that it's still running, still diligently running down there, watching this KeePass Sync folder for changes. That's kind of it for the computer side. Now we're going to take a pause. We're going to move this over. We're going to take a pause, and I'm going to start up my little virtual phone again. And we're going to set everything up on the phone side to get you synced and going over there. Okay, congratulations, we're back. Here's our little fake phone. You can see that we still have Bitwarden on it from before, but we're logged out, so we're going to leave that logged out for now because we don't actually want it to interfere with our process here. One of the first things that we're going to do is we're going to create a folder to sync that password file just like we did before. So if we open up our app drawer and we click the Files app to basically get access to the files on our computer, you'll notice that you only have access to the folders that it wants you to have access to. And this is for people that don't like to know what their devices are doing behind the scenes, which is fine. That's a lot of you. That's cool. That's who this video is for, so I'm not going to talk too much crap. But anyway, in the top right, you can click the little menu and come down here and say Show Internal Storage. Now, all this does is it shows your phone's storage as an option for you to actually browse. This would be like your phone's C drive. That's really as simple as it is. So in the bottom left now, in my case, it's called VirtualBox because that's the program I'm running the fake phone in. But for yours, it'll say something different. You can click on the drive that appears, and you can see these are kind of like the default folders that are going to be on most of your Android phones. iOS phones are going to be different. That's outside the scope of this tutorial. If you're really concerned about your privacy, you should not use an iPhone. But you can do all of these same steps, including, you know, the sync things and the KeePass and all that stuff on iOS. That is just not, that's outside the scope of this article video. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is create a folder for our SyncThing, for our password database, just like we did on the C drive of our computer. So in the top right, you'll open the menu, you'll click New Folder. We're gonna name it KeePass Sync, just like we did on our computer. We're gonna click OK. And then that's basically all we need to do for now. We can go back to our home screen here. Next up, we need to install the SyncThing, the KeePass app. Okay, so to install the KeePass app, we're going to open up our Play Store, just like you do for any other app that you install, and just like we did for Bitwarden, same stuff. We're going to type in KeePass, and we're going to search, And this is basically the one. Now there are multiple, just like all the other KeePasses. We want to make sure that you install the correct one because they don't all work perfectly together. The one that we're interested in is KeePass to Android. This is, in my opinion, the best app. I'm just making sure that I have this name correct. KeePass to Android, password safe. Yes, that is the correct one. KeePass to Android, password safe is the app you want to install on your phone. We're just going to click install here. This is as simple as installing any other app you've ever installed. There we go. So now we can go back to our home screen here, and you should see, there it goes. There's a new icon. I'm going to move this icon over to my main screen. This is an icon that you may use often, so you probably want to sort of keep it visible or readily accessible. We're going to click KeePass to Android to start the app. It's going to give us the changelog. We don't care, so we're going to click OK. Okay, so KeePass to Android is actually a pretty sweet app. It will handle the syncing for you if you want it to. It's kind of outside the scope of this video. If you wanted to, you could use Google Drive or any number of other options for syncing your password file. I'm not going to go into most of those because we're trying to take responsibility for our own stuff this time, but you can see, let me back up just to tell you what I did. It gives you a choice, open file or create new database. This is just like what we did on the desktop when we opened KeePassXC for the first time. The first thing that it wanted us to do was create a new database or open an existing one. Well, we don't want to create a new one on our phone. We already have a password file on our computer that we're going to get. So we're going to say we want to open a file. Now it gives us all these cool options for how to sync your password file. And if you want to explore the alternative ways of doing this, you are certainly more than welcome to do it. If you don't want to use SyncThing, you can certainly trust, for example, Dropbox or Google or Google Drive or OneDrive, or if you have an FTP server or a WebDev server or a Nextcloud or an OwnCloud, like this thing will do all of that for you and handle the syncing for you. But we've already taken care of it. We've already got SyncThing. So we good. So before we actually open the file, we need to actually get the sync going. So we're going to go back to our home screen. We're going to go back to the Play Store. And we're going to install SyncThing for Android. So in our App Store's search box, we're going to type in SyncThing. And we're going to click on it. And we're going to click install, just like we've done all the other times. All right, and we can click Home. And we can see back on our screen, we've got a new icon for SyncThing. There we go. I'm just going to pull it here to the home screen just for ease of access. We're going to start the SyncThing app. And the first time you start it, it's going to walk you through this little thing. We're just going to click continue. It needs storage permission. So we're going to click the grant permission button. It needs access to the files on your phone. So we're going to click that button. We're going to click allow. We're going to click continue. And now it needs location permission. This is only for sort of Wi-Fi stuff and synchronizing over Wi-Fi networks and things like that. This is up to you. You do not have to do this if you don't want to. For the purposes of this demo, we're going to grant permission to the Wi-Fi. We're going to click allow. We're going to click finish. That is it. SyncThing is now up and running. Now, it's asking me about battery optimization. Android may stop synchronization after some time. To prevent this, turn off battery optimization. Some devices have additional task-killing apps pre-installed. You should add SyncThing to their whitelist as well. What does this mean? Well, Android's gotten pretty smart. Any programs running in the background for a long period of time, it will kill them. It will turn them off to save your battery. SyncThing's pretty easy going on your battery. We're not terribly worried about it. So for SyncThing, and you could choose to not turn it off and just see how it goes. It's certainly possible for you. In that case, you would click later or don't show again. For our purposes, I think the correct thing to do is to turn this off. So we're going to click turn off for SyncThing. And when we click that, Android is going to ask us if it's okay to let the app always run in the background. Allowing SyncThing to always run in the background may reduce battery life. Yes, allow. There we go. Okay, so just like SyncThing on the computer, it added a default sync folder for this device. In this case, it picked our camera's pictures folder. Now, if you're thinking about it, like, we'll save this for the SyncThing video that we'll probably do in the future that's specific to this, and we won't go into it today. But think about that. We already have SyncThing on your computer. Now you have SyncThing on your phone. You could have it whenever you want, sync all your pictures, all your, any memes that you download, your, videos and all that stuff, you can add those as folders to be synced and then go back to your computer and add a folder on your computer and have it sync your pictures for you. We'll save that for another video. But what you're doing here with your password folder is exactly the same thing you would do for all the other things that you want to sync between all of your devices in your life. Pretty cool stuff that you might be interested in. So for now, I'm just going to ignore this camera folder that it added by default. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is to introduce the devices to each other so that they know that each other exists, and we can begin that process. We do that by adding the device to our phone. The easiest way to do this is to add the device from your phone instead of adding the phone from your computer. I'm not going to go into why that is the case, but your phone has an easy to use camera. And that'll make this process easier. If you wanted to add another computer, you could do it from either computer right here with this button called Add Remote Device. But we're going to kind of introduce the computer to the phone. And to do that, in the top right of the computer side, we're going to click the Actions menu and we're going to click Show ID. Now this QR code we're going to be able to use from our phone. If this phone wasn't virtual, this would be super easy. But from the phone side, we'll click Add Device. Come on, there we go. We're going to click Add Device, and then at the top it needs the device ID. Now, because this is a virtual phone, I can't use the camera, but if this is your actual phone, you can click this little barcode button in the top right here, and it's going to pop up your phone's camera. It's going to ask if you wanted to allow it to use the camera. Yes, we want to allow it to use the camera. And this is the point where you would point your phone at your computer screen with that QR code up, and it would very quickly and easily get the device ID from your computer. But because this is not a real phone, I'm now going to manually type in the entire device ID. Here we go. Okay, hopefully I typed that in correctly. We'll find out in a second. The name will just be the name of our home computer, whatever we want to know it as. The link is unimportant. The compression is unimportant. We're basically going to click Add and see if I typed in the device ID properly. Ah, okay, I think it worked. It says disconnected instead of unknown. So now what we need to do is come back over here to our computer and tell our computer that it's okay to share this KeePassXC folder with that machine, because it's not going to by default share all your folders with all of everything. So that also means that you could use this SyncThing to collaborate with other people on things. We're not going to get into that today, but so back on the computer, we now see a pop-up. It'll take sometimes 2 minutes, 5 minutes, something like that for them to kind of get figured out. But eventually on your Sync Tracer side on the computer, you're going to see this pop-up that says new device, VirtualBox, that's my phone, with this ID, blah, 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 wants to connect. Add new device? Yes, add new device. That's awesome. You can rename it here if you want to do that. On the sharing tab, this is where you're going to tell KeePass, or excuse me, you're going to tell SyncThing what you want to share with this device, because it will not by default share all of your folders, which means that you have the ability to share some folders with other people. Like, let's say you have a collaborative project and you want to sync all the files between your computers. This can do that, and it's pretty fine-grained. So in this case, we're going to check the KeePassXC so that it will share as a folder. And then we're going to click Save. And now you'll see in the bottom right on our computer, we see VirtualBox. This is my phone. I guess everything's called VirtualBox. But anyway, this is the name of my phone. There we go. It says disconnected. This takes a little bit to sort of get synced up and connected, but if we can watch it on both sides and we'll see how it works. Now here in a minute, on the phone side, it's going to realize that a folder was shared from the home computer, and it's going to pop up a notification. Okay, so in my case, it took about 3 minutes for the devices to sort of find each other and begin talking. But you can see now on the phone side, it says up to date. You can see now on the computer side, it says syncing 0%. It says that because it's trying to share a folder that hasn't been set up on the phone side yet. But you can see that the devices are talking. So back on the phone side, oh, you know what? It's up here in the notification tray. So if we bring down our notifications, we have an invitation from our home computer that wants to share the folder KeePassXC we're going to accept that invitation. And we're going to basically tell it where on our phone we want it to sync. So we're going to click the directory item here. And then just like we did before, we're going to pick our, we're going to open up the menu and pick our phone's C drive, just like we did before. And in this case, we're going to pick the KeePassXC folder, just that we created earlier. And we're going to click the select button. And it's synced the name. There's the path. It's /storage/emulated/0, whatever. That's fine. Actually, that didn't go correctly. So we need to open this folder. There we go. Now, once we're inside the KeePassXC folder, now we can click select, and now we can see the path is storage emulated 0 KeePassXC. Watch for changes. Yes, we're going to leave that on. Pause folder is an option that you can do at any time. So let's say you're on a really poor internet connection and you're trying to do something somewhere, and maybe you just took a bunch of pictures with your phone's camera and you have your phone's camera folder shared. Well, you can turn that off so that it's not always trying to share those folders using your bandwidth or whatever. That's it, basically. So now we're going to click create in the top right, and that's going to kick it off. And so here in a moment, we will see, both on the computer side and on the phone side, it begin to sync. So it looks like here, it's already synced. So let's just see. Let's look. So we're going to open up our app drawer. We're going to go back to our Files app. We're going to open up the KeePassXC folder. And look, primary.kdbx. Primary is the name of our database file from our computer. Magic. Okay, that's syncing done. We have just eliminated the need to pay a company for their password management syncing software. Because we can do that ourselves because we're grown-ass men. Okay, so that is syncing done. As far as I'm concerned, if that's all you ever do, you can never look at SyncThing ever again. You don't need to. You're good. And so over on the computer side, I'm going to close the sync Trezor. On the phone, we can even, you know, get rid of this icon if we wanted, as long as it's running. You know, if we look in our notification tray on our phone, you can say that it says SyncThing is running. That's good. It means it's watching for changes to your password file. Yeah. So now we can open up KeePass to Android again, and we're back here to this question of opening the password file. Well, we don't need Dropbox or Google Drive or anything because we're doing that ourselves with SyncThing. So rather than using any of those, we're going to go System File Picker. And then here, we're going to need to open up, once again, the C drive of our phone. In my case, it's called VirtualBox. And we're going to open up our KeePassXC folder. And we're going to pick our primary file. Okay, so we're really close. This is awesome. Okay, so, and this is actually hilarious because we still have Bitwarden installed. Bitwarden is offering to autofill our password, even though it has no idea what the password is for this app. We're going to ignore that for now. But this is the same password that we created, or that we used to lock our password database on the other side. I'm just going to enter that again. I think it was boy howdy. And I'm going to enable quick lock, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit because it will save time. Because again, just the same problem we had with Bitwarden, right? And Bitwarden wanted you to use biometrics. And remember, we had that talk about like, yeah, I mean, you should turn off biometrics, but that means you actually have to bite the bullet and enter your long ass password every time you want to unlock your Bitwarden thing. Well, quick unlock is an advantage of KeePass that will save you a little bit of time in that regard, though it can be less secure. So it's up to you if you want to do that. So we're going to enter our password. We're going to click unlock. It's going to do the thing. Now remember, on the computer, we told it to take 2.5 seconds. Well, that might run a little bit slower on your phone. So you saw how long it took. Wasn't too bad at all. But here we are. Look, we have the KeePassXC browser passwords folder, just like we had on the computer, with nothing in it. And we have our coder stuff folder, just like we had. And look, there's our gitlab.com password with our custom name that we added over on the computer. There's everything that we need here. So you'll notice at the bottom of this app, it's telling us to do the same things that we had to do for the Bitwarden app. Remember those things we had to go into the Android operating system and tell it that it could be the, you know, the autofill app or whatever? we need to do the same thing with KeePass so that Android allows it to do that stuff for us. So in the bottom, we're going to click Enable Autofill, which again is going to take us back over to Android. And instead of Bitwarden, we're going to choose KeePass to Android as the autofiller. It's going to make sure that we trust the app. Yes, we trust the app. We're going to click OK. And there we go. And then at the bottom again, Android 8 has introduced new behavior for notifications. If you want to hide the icon for KeePass to Android's notifications, please configure this through the system settings. In this case, we're going to say, I don't care. We're good with that. Now let's take a quick perusal through the settings to see if there's anything important that we need to set up. So let's start here with the app. So to get to the settings, actually, excuse me, let me back up. So from the main app window, we're going to click the settings button in the top right. From here, we're going to go into the app settings option. We're going to start in the security section. So the clipboard timeout, this is the same thing that happens on your actual computer. So when you copy a password from the password manager to your clipboard on Windows, after a certain number of minutes, it'll clear your clipboard just so that that password isn't sitting there in your clipboard for other nefarious people to maybe attempt to paste. Same thing on your phone. It will automatically clear it. That's an awesome thing. App timeout. This is the time before locking the database. This is just like it's worked on all of the other apps and browser extensions that we've done. Lock when the screen is turned off. I suggest you do that. If you ever turn the screen on your phone off, that means you're kind of done with it, and that could mean that maybe you've set your phone down at Starbucks and forgotten and walked away, and now somebody else could pick it up, and if they're somehow able to unlock your phone, they would then have access to all of your passwords. Lock when leaving app. This is like an extreme version of that. If you just, move on to a different app, it'll lock the database again if you want it to. I choose to not use this one. Okay, now let's go into the quick unlock settings. This is the thing that can save you some time, though it's kind of the same thing, that it's less secure as a biometric. Basically, it's reducing the number of characters of your master password that you have to enter to unlock your password database. So the first time that you open your database with your app, it will ask you for your full master password that you enter on the computer as well. And then after that, unless your password database changes, like you add something new from the computer and it syncs over, it will keep it sort of locked in the phone's memory partially. So basically, it'll allow you to enter a shorter version of your master password. In this case, the quick unlock key. Now, if we click on length of quick unlock key, it says how many characters do you want that to be? It defaults to 3, which is absurd. But if you choose to use quick unlock on your phone, I would set this to like 9 or 10 or more. So like if, how do I describe this? So basically when your database is quick locked, it means rather than entering the entire master password to unlock it, you only have to enter the last 3 characters or 9 or 10 characters, whatever number you set here, number of characters of your master password to unlock it. If you choose to use quick unlock, and if you don't want to use it, uncheck this box at the top here. But if you choose to use it, I would also suggest checking hide quick unlock length. Okay, that's good enough for the settings. Let's see if there's anything else we need to set up here. Okay, so in the top right, you have a couple things I want to point out. You have a lock database button. If you click that, it'll manually lock your database. And then in the menu, you also have synchronize database. What this does is you have your SyncThing folder behind the scenes, and it syncs your password database file from your computer. And then when you unlock your database file from your computer, it basically takes a copy of that and works over here on a copy of the file on your phone. So if you make a change to this, or if you make a change on your computer, that sync will happen behind the scenes, but the app will not be paying attention to it until you tell it to. Now, it does this automatically on its own every long period of time. But if you're sitting there with your device in hand and your computer ready to go, and you add a password on your computer, and then you pick up your phone and you try and use that password that you just added on your computer, your phone might not have been aware of that having been updated yet. So just to sort of force that to happen, you can choose synchronize database, and it will actually go out and look immediately just to make that happen. But that's it. We're done. We have our KeePass installed in both locations. We have SyncThing handling the syncing of our password database for us. Now it's just like using Bitwarden in terms of how that works. So in this case, we'll go to GitLab and we will try and log in. In this case, we still have Bitwarden popping up. So that's my bad. So ignore the Bitwarden thing because you should only have one or the other of these installed. So you probably wouldn't have Bitwarden installed if this was the case. But you'll notice that now in our app tray up here, if we drag down our notifications, you see that KeePass has detected that we're on GitLab.com. And it says copy user, copy password. Well, this is an easy way to do this manually. We can copy the username, paste that in there, and then we can come back up to our notification tray and copy the password and paste it in there. And we'll click sign in. And there we go. So that's the browser. And it can work the exact same way for apps that have their own passwords. It can detect them. It'll ask you what you want. We can swipe away. We don't need that anymore. We also have KeePass to Android showing that our primary database is unlocked, and we can lock it right there if we want. Let's just go ahead and show you what that looks like. I'll click Lock Database. Now you can see when the database is locked, Quick Unlock is enabled. So if I need to use my passwords, so like if we open KeePass to Android, come on, there we go. You say Quick Unlock. Now, if you remember, I think I left it set to the last 3 characters of our password, which is actually terrible. But let me enter the last 3 characters of our master password. And oh, okay, so source file and cache are synchronized. What just happened behind the scenes there was that it realized that the password database actually got updated. So instead of unlocking the database with our quick unlock password, it actually says, oh, we have a new copy of the database now. You need to enter your full password again. This won't happen every time. But we enter the full password there to unlock our password database. So there we go. Now, just to illustrate how the syncing can work for you behind the scenes, let's just add, when we click in the app, the plus button to add a new password, we click the little password button right there. We can say, this is a test entry. In the notes section, we'll say super secret stuff, and then we'll click save. Now it's saving the database. Again, every time it does this opening or saving of the database, it's going to use that 2.5 second time that we chose originally when we created the database, because it's doing the re-encryption thing again. So now, behind the scenes, once it saves this database, we can probably come back over here. Let's see how quickly SyncThing operates. Okay, and I just saw the update over on the computer side. You can see in the bottom right, well, I think we missed the little notification, but it said it noticed the update, it connected across, and noticed that the password database was updated. And now here in our KeePass on the computer, with the invisible icon that we still have, there it is. So you can see that it updated the database. Once, at most, you might just need to sort of lock and unlock the database to have it pick up the new change. But you can see here in the root folder, we have the new test entry with our super secret stuff. Okay, so that's it, guys. That's kind of how it works end to end. If this was intimidating for you, I would ask this much of you. Pick like the number one like most frequently used website that you log into or app that you log into, and only use it for that in the beginning. Keep doing everything else that you've been doing the same way you've been doing it for a while, but give yourself like a week to just decompress after setting all of this up, because again, like once you've set up SyncThing, once you've got the app installed and pointed at the right file, it's fire and forget. You don't have to do that again unless you want to add a new device or a new computer to sync across. Like I have a laptop and I have that, you know, syncing my password database as well. Or maybe if you have multiple mobile devices or something like that. Like once you set all this stuff up, you're done. It's syncing. Your password database is synced. Use it on your computer and it'll sync over to your phone. Behind the scenes without worrying about it. You don't have to immediately, if this was intimidating for you and you're worried that you'll forget something and your passwords will be like forever lost and locked inside, you know, this complicated program. Use it for 1 or 2 things until you figure it out, until you get used to it. And you'll start to sort of make it part of your normal daily routine. You know, you brush your hair in the morning, brush your teeth, take a bath, and you incorporate password management into your routine. If SyncThing, you know, pushes you over the edge too much in the beginning, it's just too much for you, you know, you can use Dropbox. You can use Google Drive. I would kind of suggest that you're losing a lot of the advantages by doing that of using KeePass, by not, you know, sort of taking personal control over your own password file. But look, as like, it's better than nothing. As a baby step towards achieving adulthood in the realm of password hygiene, it is definitely a step, a step in the right direction, even if you're using one of the services. And that's outside the scope of this video, but if you're already using Google Drive and Google Drive Sync, you know it's built into Windows that it'll watch a folder. You can choose to put your password file in that folder that it syncs to Google Drive, and then you can use the app on your Android. Remember when in KeePass to Android, when you click on the Open File button, Google Drive is one of the options for that, and it will log into your Google Drive and download and sync your password file for you without having to use SyncThing. But really, guys, like, SyncThing is just so hands-off. Like, once you do that little handshake where we add the device with the barcode, and you point the folder at both ends, like, hey, computer, watch this folder. Hey, phone, you know, put everything from the computer's folder into this folder on your phone. Like, once you do that, you're done. Like, you never have to mess with SyncThing again. Like, you don't even have to open the app. You don't even have to care much about it. It will handle all of that for you behind the scenes seamlessly. SyncThing is really useful, like I said, just to kind of finish making the case for that again. It's really useful for a lot of other stuff. You know, the SyncThing on the phone, sharing all of our photos. And if we wanted to, it would be very simple over on our Sync Trezor side. Just to show you really quickly, we can open our Sync Trezor. We can edit this remote device. Oh, actually, it would need to go the other way. Excuse me, I'm just confusing you now. I'm going to save the SyncThing stuff for a future SyncThing specific video, so that I'm worried I've already overloaded you. But really, that's it, guys. So we have the password manager software on your computer. We have the password manager browser extension, just like we did for Bitwarden, right there, that does all of that good stuff for you. We have the password manager app on your phone, just like we had Bitwarden, KeePass to Android. And then the only additional thing that we did, kind of above and beyond Bitwarden, was we took control of the syncing of that file ourselves using SyncThing. So we installed SyncThing on the computer, SyncThing on the phone, and set up the syncing ourselves without depending on anybody else. All we need is an internet connection or a Wi-Fi connection, and our password gets securely synced to our phone for us. So this is your next big off-ramp. And you know what? You're fine if you want. If this was like if this maxed you out and you want to stop here for a while, so be it. Take the exit ramp. You've come a long way. You're almost there. You're basically almost to where you need to be as a grown-up with passwords. And if you want to operate at this place for a week or two, before you take the next step into two-factor, which will be the final video in this series, which compared to what we've already done is not going to be that big a deal for you, then fine. I'm happy that you've come this far. Thank you for spending the time to take this stuff seriously. I want our Liberty lovers to be as secure and as grown up and as adult and responsible as possible. So I think we'll leave this video here. If I missed anything, if there's any glaring questions that I left out, I'll put them in the comments and I'll try and address them in the beginning of the next video. And as always, make sure you check the description and the pinned comments just to see if, you know, maybe there's a version 2 of this video or an addendum to this video that's something important related specifically to KeePass or SyncThing, something like that. All right. We'll leave the video here, guys. Thanks for watching.